and my feet, that it is myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit hath not flesh and bones, as ye see me have. Luke 24:39. He took from them boiled fish and a piece of honeycomb, and ate them in their presence. Luke 24:42 and 3. These verses show that it is certain that Jesus never went to heaven. Rather, coming out of the tomb, he went to Galilee, like an ordinary man, in normal clothes, with a human body. If he had been resurrected after death, how was it that this body of spirit could still have borne the wounds inflicted upon him on the cross? What need had he to eat? And if he required food then, he must be in need of food even now. Readers should not be under any misconception. The cross of the Jews was not like the hangman's noose of today, from which deliverance alive is nearly impossible. For the cross of those days had no rope to be put around the neck of the victim, nor was he subjected to a fall from a wooden plank and allowed to keep hanging. Rather, he was just put on the cross, and his hands and feet were nailed to it. And it was quite possible that if, after crucifying a person and driving nails into him, it was decided in a day or two to forgive him and spare his life, he was taken down alive before his bones had been broken, the punishment already undergone being deemed sufficient for him. If it was decided to kill him, he was kept on the cross at least for 3 days. Water or bread was not allowed to come near him, and he was left in this condition in the sun for 3 or more days, when his bones were broken, and ultimately, as a result of this torture, he died. But the grace of Almighty God rescued Jesus from this torture, which would have ended his life. Reading the Gospel with care will show that Jesus, on whom be peace, did not remain on the cross for 3 days, nor were his bones broken. On the other hand, he remained on the cross only for 2 hours, and the grace and mercy of God managed to bring about the crucifixion in the latter part of the day, which was a Friday, only a little time before sunset, the next day being the Sabbath, the feast Fasach of the Jews. According to Jewish custom, it was unlawful and punishable crime to let anyone remain on the cross on the Sabbath day or during the night previous to it. Jews, like Muslims, observed the lunar calendar, sunset being regarded as beginning the day. So, on the one hand, there was this circumstance which arose out of earthly causes, and on the other, Almighty God brought into existence heavenly circumstances, namely, that when it was the 6th hour, there was a severe dust storm which darkened the earth for 3 hours. Mark 15:33. This 6th hour was after 12 o'clock, that is, close to the evening. Now the Jews were afraid in this utter darkness, lest the night of the Sabbath should overtake them, and lest, having violated the sanctity of the Sabbath, they should deserve to be punished. Therefore, in all haste, they took Jesus and the 2 thieves off their crosses. In addition to all this, there was another heavenly cause, namely, that when Pilate presided at his court, his wife sent word to him not to have anything to do with that righteous person, that is, not to attempt to punish him with death, for, she said, she had had a dream that night which had troubled her very much. Matthew 2:19. So this angel, whom the wife of Pilate saw in her dream, would assure us and all fair-minded people with certainty that God had never intended that Jesus should die on the cross. From the day of the creation of this world, never has it occurred that God should suggest to a person in a dream that a particular thing would happen in a certain way, and still that thing should fail to happen. For example, the Gospel of Matthew says that an angel of the Lord came to Joseph in a dream and said, "Arise, and take the young child and the mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him." Matthew 2:13. Now, can anyone say that Jesus could be killed in Egypt? Similarly, the dream which the wife of Pilate dreamt was a part of God's design, and it could never be that this design should fail in its object. And just as the possibility of Jesus being put to death during the Egyptian journey was against a specific promise of God, so here it is unthinkable that the angel of Almighty God should appear to the wife of Pilate and should direct her to say that if Jesus died on the cross, it would not be a happy thing for her. And yet the angel's appearance should go in vain, and Jesus should be allowed to suffer death on the cross. Is there any example of this in the world? None. The pure conscience of all good men, when informed of the dream of Pilate's wife, will no doubt testify that it was a fact that the purpose of that dream was to lay the foundation for the rescue of Jesus. It is, of course, open to everybody to deny an out-and-out truth. Out of prejudice born of his creed, he may refuse to accept it, but fairness would oblige us to believe that the dream of Pilate's wife is a piece of weighty evidence in support of Jesus' escape from the cross. Although, therefore, the powerful evidence which I shall set out in this book invalidates the divinity of Jesus and the doctrine of atonement, yet honesty and love of fairness require us not to be partial to a communal or customary creed on a question of fact. From the day of the creation of man up till today, the limited intellect of man has invested 1,000 things with divinity and Godhead, so much so that even cats and snakes have been worshipped. Nevertheless, wise people, through heaven's help, have continued to be saved from the evil of such polytheistic beliefs. Among the testimonies of the Bible in support of Jesus' escape from death on the cross is his journey to a far-off. On the morning of Sunday, he first met Mary Magdalene, who at once informed the disciples that Jesus was alive, and they did not believe it. Then he was seen by 2 of the disciples when they were going out to the countryside, and last of all he appeared to the 11 when they were at their meal, and censured them for their callousness and lack of faith. Matthew 16:9-14. When 2 disciples of Jesus were going toward the hamlet called Emmaus, which was at a distance of 3 3/4 miles from Jerusalem, Jesus met them. And when they were near that hamlet, Jesus went forward to part company with them, but they did not allow him to go, saying that that night they would be together. He then dined with them, and all of them, along with Jesus, spent the night at the village named Emmaus. Luke 24:13-31. Now, to say that Jesus did all this with a spiritual body, which is supposed to be the nature of the body after death, which only the physical body was capable of doing, as, for example, eating and drinking and sleeping and making a long journey to Galilee, which was at a distance of 70 miles from Jerusalem, is saying something impossible and quite against reason. In spite of the fact that on account of individual bias the accounts of the Gospels have differed, the texts as they are nevertheless clearly show that Jesus met his disciples in the ordinary mortal human body, and made a long journey on foot to Galilee, showed his wounds to the disciple, dined with them at night, and slept in their company. Now, here one has to consider whether, after acquiring an eternal spiritual body, that is, after gaining that immortal body which entitled him, having been freed from the necessity of eating and drinking, to sit on the right hand of God, and to be free of all wounds and pain and infirmities, it still suffered from one defect. Although it had the glory of the eternal and ever-existing God, the defect, namely, that his body had on it fresh wounds of the cross and the nails, which were bleeding and were very painful, and for which an ointment had been prepared. And even after acquiring a glorious and an immortal body, eternally sound, faultless, perfect, and unchangeable, that same body continued to suffer from defects of many kinds. Jesus himself showed to his disciples the flesh and bones of his body. And again, not only this, but there were also the pangs of hunger and thirst, necessities of the mortal body. Otherwise, where was the need for him during the journey to Galilee to do such useless things as eating and drinking water, resting and sleeping? Undoubtedly, hunger and thirst in this world are painful for the mortal body, which may even prove